December 24th, 1938, a small town in Sweden, buried under snow. A 60-year-old woman sits by a coal stove, her breath visible in the cold air. Her hands, thin, steady, marked by decades of handling radioactive materials, unfold a letter from Berlin. It's from her closest collaborator of 30 years. Inside, experimental data. Confusing. Impossible. Uranium, bombarded with neutrons, had turned into barium, a heavy atom, splitting into something lighter. Science said it couldn't happen. She reads the numbers again, and then, in that quiet room, far from the lab she was forced to flee, something clicks, not in the apparatus, in her mind. She calls her nephew, a young physicist, and they walk into the woods. For hours they talk, they calculate, they argue, and in the falling snow they arrive at a truth so dangerous, so world-altering, that she knows the moment she writes it down. This equation will not just change physics, it will change humanity. She sends the explanation back to Berlin. Her colleague publishes it and wins the Nobel Prize. But her name? It is missing from the paper, missing from the award, missing from history. Who was this woman, and why did the world erase the mind that unlocked the atom? Her name was Lise Meitner, born in 1878 in Vienna, into a Jewish family that believed in education, even for girls, even when universities barred them. At 14, she finished school, but Austrian law forbade women from attending university. So she waited, studied physics on her own, read Maxwell, Boltzmann, Planck, in German, in French, in English. In 1901, the law changed. She enrolled the next day. In 1906, she became only the second woman ever to earn a doctorate in physics from the University of Vienna. Her thesis? Heat conduction in non-homogeneous solids. Dry, precise, brilliant. But Vienna had no place for a female physicist. So she wrote to Max Planck, the father of quantum theory, and asked for a chance. To everyone's surprise, he said yes. In 1907, she arrived in Berlin, a city of gaslight and ambition. Planck let her attend his lectures, but only as an unpaid guest. Women weren't allowed in the Physics Institute, so when she met Otto Hahn, a chemist looking for a physicist to collaborate with, they worked in a wooden shed behind the chemistry building. No heat, no fume hood, no salary. She entered through the back entrance, the one for servants. For 30 years, they were a perfect pair. He, the meticulous chemist, isolating elements with surgical precision. She, the visionary physicist, interpreting what the numbers meant. Together, they discovered protactinium. Together, they mapped the decay chains of radioactive isotopes. Together, they became leaders in nuclear science, but only his name appeared on the door. Only his name was introduced at conferences. She was Hahn's assistant, though she held a doctorate he did not. She was the woman in the basement, though her mind shaped the field. By 1933, the Nazis were in power. Jewish scientists were fired, expelled, silenced. Meitner kept working, protected by her Austrian citizenship. But in 1938, Germany annexed Austria. Overnight, she became a German Jew, stateless, vulnerable, targeted. Hahn begged her to leave, but escape required money, visas, connections, none of which she had. Then, a miracle. Dutch physicists Dirk Koster and Adrian Fokker risked their lives to smuggle her out. She took only a small suitcase and a diamond ring, given to her by her mother, sewn into the lining of her coat. She crossed the border by train, heart pounding, papers in hand, and stepped into exile. In Sweden, she was offered a position at Mana Siegban's Institute, But Zsigmond, a future Nobel laureate, resented her. He gave her no lab, no equipment, no students. He called her work uninteresting. She was isolated, underfunded, forgotten. Yet she kept writing to Hahn, not out of sentiment, but science. They had unfinished work: uranium, neutrons, the edge of the unknown. And in December 1938, he sent her the data that would change everything. The letter arrived on December 19th. Hahn described how, after bombarding uranium with neutrons, he kept finding barium, an element less than half uranium's mass. He wrote, "Perhaps you can suggest some fantastic explanation." She showed it to her nephew, Otto Frisch, visiting for Christmas. "This is impossible," he said. "Unless," she replied. They walked into the woods near Kungälv. Snow fell softly. The world was still, and step by step they worked it out. The uranium nucleus, overloaded with neutrons, became unstable. It didn't just crack, it split, like a droplet of water pulled apart by surface tension. And in that split, mass was lost. And from that loss, energy was born. Einstein's EAMC2, no longer theory, now reality. Frisch later recalled, "We walked up and down in the snow, seeing the drops in our minds, feeling the tension, until suddenly the nucleus burst." Back in her room, Meitner calculated the energy release. 200 million electron volts per fission, enough to power a city, enough to destroy one. She wrote it all down, sent it to Hahn. He used her physics, but published only the chemistry. In Naturwissenschaften, January 6, 1939, Concerning the Existence of Alkaline Earth Metals from Uranium, by Otto Hahn and Fritz Strassmann. No mention of Meitner, no thanks, no co-authorship, just a footnote. We are indebted to Professor Meitner for her continued interest. The paper ignited the physics world. Niels Bohr took the news to America. Within weeks, labs from Columbia to Copenhagen confirmed fission. Leo Szilard drafted the Einstein-Szilard letter. The Manhattan Project began. But in every lecture, every report, every citation, it was Hahn's experiment, rarely Meitner and Frisch's explanation. In 1944, the Nobel Committee awarded the prize in chemistry to Otto Hahn alone. Their justification? For his discovery of the fission of heavy nuclei. Note, discovery, not explanation. As if seeing the effect mattered more than understanding the cause. Meitner received letters of congratulations and quiet apologies. Hahn wrote, "I am grateful for your help, but the Nobel is for experimental work." She replied simply, "Science is not about credit. It is about truth." But truth doesn't feed children, doesn't buy lab space, doesn't earn medals. And history? History is written by those who hold the pen and the prize. She lived to 89, saw atomic bombs fall on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, refused to work on the bomb, said, "I will have nothing to do with a weapon," advocated for peaceful uses of nuclear energy, spoke at conferences, finally, as Dr. Lise Meitner. In 1946, Time magazine called her the Jewish mother of the bomb, a title she hated. In 1966, she shared the Enrico Fermi Award, but Hahn's name was first. She died in 1968, respected but not famous. Then, in 1997, 29 years after her death, the International Union of Pure and Applied Chemistry announced Element 109 would be named Meitnerium, Emt. The first, and still only, element named after a woman who was not a myth. Curie was shared with Pierre and Marie, Meitner alone. Today, every nuclear reactor, every medical isotope scan, every radiation therapy rests on her insight. But open a high school textbook. Watch a documentary. Search Who Discovered Fission, and you'll see Hahn, rarely Meitner, almost never Frisch. Was it sexism? Was it anti-Semitism? Was it exile, the erasure that comes when you're no longer in the room where decisions are made? Or was it something deeper, a bias in how we see science itself? We celebrate the hand that pulls the lever, but forget the mind that designed the machine. Next time you hear nuclear fission, don't just think of energy. Think of a woman walking in the snow. Think of an equation written in exile. Think of a name, deliberately, quietly, left off the page, because history forgets the quiet ones, but we don't have to.